let's look at applications of linear graphs. Example 1. A donut store charges $4 per donut and $10 for delivery for any number of donuts. Part A. Find the rule connecting the cost C dollars with the number of donuts delivered N. Part B. Use the rule to find the cost of delivering a dozen donuts. And lastly, part C. How many donuts can you order for $100? Let's look at the first part. Find the rule connecting the cost C with the number of donuts delivered. We can write a table and try to figure out how much it costs for 1, 2, 3 donuts. Okay, for one donut, it would cost $4 plus the $10 delivery fee, which is $14. For 2 donuts, now we have 2 times 4, and then which is 8 plus 10, which is $18. For 3 donuts, we have to do $4 times the 3, which is $12, plus the $10 delivery fee is $22. Then we can find a gradient. We can use 2 coordinates that we found out. So for example, let's do the second coordinate and the first coordinate. So 18 minus 4 for the y values, and x is 2 minus 1. Now we have 18 minus 4 is 4, and 2 minus 1 is 1, so the gradient is 4. But if you notice in the story, you're multiplying by 4 all the time, so you can actually pick the gradient from the story as well. So we have cost equals 4n plus c, and we have to figure out what c is. We can do substitution using the first coordinate where x is 1 and y is 14. So you can try that and plug it into the equation. We have 14 equals 4 plus c. Bring the 4 over, we have c equals 2. 14 minus 4 is 10. So now we have c and we have m. We can write c equals 4n plus 10. Now be careful, sometimes the question is saying c as the cost, not c as in the y-intercept. Here I've tried to differentiate the two by using capital C and little c. Another thing you might have noticed is you could have come up with the equation from the pattern we were working on. So 4, the number you multiply by, is your gradient, and 10, the number that doesn't change and you have to pay, is your y-intercept. Let's do the second part. Use a rule to find the cost of delivering a dozen donuts. So what does that mean? A dozen donuts. Is that C or N? That is N, the number of donuts. So we have N equals 12. Plug it in there. We have C, the cost is equal to 4 times 12 plus 10, which is 48 plus 10, or in other words, $58. And you have to write the sentence. It would cost $58 to buy 12 donuts. Last little part, how many donuts can you buy for $100? What does that mean, $100? Is that C equals 100 or N equals 100? That's C equals 100. So sub C equals 100 into our equation. We get 100 equals 4N plus 10. Now we have to figure out what N is. So 100 and the 10, bring the 10 over, we get 90. And then we divide by 4. And then 90 divided by 4 is 22.5. Now be very careful what you write here. How many donuts can you buy for $100? You can't get a free half a donut. So this time we have to round down. We can only get 22 donuts with $100. The rounding is tricky. You have to read the question. Let me show you what I mean by doing another example. Example 2. Now you can read the question and give it a go yourself. Pause the video, try to find a solution, and then unpause to see the answer. Let's read. The bottle of sanitizer is being used up at a steady rate. If after 5 uses there's 35 mils left, and after 10 uses there are 20 mils left. Part A. Find a rule linking the amount of sanitizer in the bottle S and the number of uses N. Part B. How much sanitizer was there at the start? And part C. When will this sanitizer run out? Now these 2 questions are very, very common questions. Let's see how we solve them. So we haven't got a number that's changing all the time this time. We have 2 sets of values, or in other words, 2 coordinates. And they are 5 and 35 and 10 and 20. So what can you do with 2 coordinates? We can use the equation m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and then we'll plug it in. So we have 35 minus 20 over 5 minus 10, which is 15 over negative 5. And that is negative 3. So that is our gradient. Now that we have the gradient, how would we write the equation? Now we notice S is our y and n is our x, because n is the number of times we're using it and s is the total amount. So we can write S equals to the gradient times n plus c. And now we're looking for c. How do we find the y-intercept? Well, we have two coordinates. We can sub in any of them into the equation to find c. And I'm going to choose 10, 20 just because it's easier to multiply 10s and 20s than 35. So our x is 10, our y is 20. So 20 equals negative 3 times 10 plus c. Negative 3 times 10 is negative 30. Bring the negative 30 to the other side, becomes plus 30. So 20 plus 30 is 50. C is 50. So put that back into the equation. We have S is equal to negative 3n plus 50. Let's do the second part. How much sanitizer was in the bottle originally? The bottle originally at the start. You'll get this question a lot. At the start means when n, or the number of uses, is 0. So n is 0, just plug it into the equation and we have S equals negative 3 times 0 plus 50 is 50. So there were 50 mils at the start. Or in other words, you could have just looked at the y-intercept. So whenever the question is asking for something at the start, you're looking at the y-intercept. Part C, when will the sanitizer run out? So that means when S, the amount of sanitizer, is 0. This is also a very common question. So make sure you know how to do these two really well. So S equals 0, plug into the equation, we have 0 equals minus 3n plus 50. We could bring the 50 to the other side, but let's bring the 3n because it's negative. So now we have 3n equals 50. Dividing 50 by 3, we get n equals 16.67. So 16.67 uses. Now example 2 is going to be different to example 1. Remember in example 1 you had 22.5 donuts and you can only order 22 donuts because you can't pay for half a donut. Now in this scenario, can you use 0.67 of a pump or 0.67 of a little bit of squirt of sanitizer? Yes, you can. So we'll run that up. So instead of 16, it's going to be 17 uses. So be very careful what the question is asking for. You have to use your judgment to see what the answer should be. More often than not, we're rounding down, but in this scenario, because we can use half a squirt of sanitizer, we round it up. So whenever you get a worded problem, it's really important to find the equation first, and that will help you answer the other questions. And to find M or C, use substitution. Some of the common questions that appear often is a starting, which means your X value is 0. And the other question that appears a lot is when it finishes, at the end of, which means your Y is often 0. Not always the case, read carefully. And finally, rounding really depends on what the subject is. So read carefully and use your common sense. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't already done so, you might want to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the videos. I'll see you next time. Bye.